Okay, I have a new song to share with y'all. God made the earth and God made the people. God made us different and God made us equal. God made us all in the image of magic. We are not supposed to live in this panic. I believe in us, revolutions and seasons. But we need all of us, every one of us, so what is your reason to make all the changes we need in this time? Let's fight for a future, it's all on the line. I believe in us, revolutions and seasons. Creator of dirt, creator of sparrows, creator of words, spells, blessings, arrows. Creator of more than enough for each mouth. How long will it take us to figure it out? 'Cause I believe in us, revolutions and seasons. We need all of us, every one of us, so what is your reason to take all the risk that we need in this time? I'll fight for your freedom as you fight for mine. And I believe in us, revolutions and seasons. I believe in us, revolutions and seasons. But we need all of us, every one of us, so what is your reason? I believe in us, every one of us, revolutions and seasons. I believe in us, every one of us, revolutions and seasons. All right, it's a drafty draft, but I wanted to share it with y'all. It made me feel a little better today. I love you all.
I'm Autumn Brown, a stand-up comedian who has been featured at South by Southwest and Netflix's Don't Tell comedy series. My forthcoming HBO show, The Situationship, which chronicles the triumphs and tragedies of a single-mom tech startup owner living in small-town Connecticut, has been hailed as the Gilmore Girls for our time.
And I'm Adrienne Marie Brown, a luscious Black queer witch, writer, auntie, an apocalyptic cosmic optimist, and a gardener of healing ideas, currently deciding whether I want to be the Pope or a Mormon cult leader for my next iteration. I live in the land of the Shakori, Skurure, and Tuscarora, and Lumbee peoples, currently known as Durham.
And this is How to Survive the End of the World,
our podcast about learning from apocalypse with grace, rigor, and curiosity.
As a reminder, we have no ads. We are fully listener supported.
So join Patreon for our exclusive content, including Top Culture. So we are still recording Top Culture with every single person we talk to and with ourselves. But all of that now is in the Patreon for right now. We may change that. We'll see. But right now, that's where it is. And we've been making very juicy recommendations.
Yeah. And we put that shit behind the paywall.
Okay. Yeah, you know.
But today we're doing something kind of special. As all of our listeners know, one of the things that we do typically for patrons only is these Ask Us Anything episodes. And today we decided there was a question that was submitted by one of our listeners that felt so resonant and so important for us to actually discuss in view of our whole listening audience community that we decided we wanted to record a special episode today just with this listener's question and release it to everybody.
Wait,
So,
sister, before we get into the
Mhm.
question, do you want to say any check-in? Do you want to say anything about how you are?
No, of course not. No, I'm kidding. I can totally check in. I guess part of my check-in is I might be moving a little too fast today.
I was like, slow down there, cowgirl.
Yeah. Okay, well now everyone's oriented to what's happening. So then we can go back and check in.
I know that always makes you feel better.
Yeah.
You're like, I do like that. Do you know what's happening?
Do we all know what's happening? Because I know what's happening.
You even know.
Oh, do you know what's happening? Because it doesn't seem like you know what's happening.
You're not acting like you know.
You're not acting like you know what's happening.
Your behavior doesn't align with an informed person around the happenings.
Exactly.
Wait, do you remember that movie, The Happening, with Mark Wahlberg?
I don't know if any of you guys have heard about this article in the New York Times. Well, apparently, honeybees are just disappearing all over the country. Tens of millions of them. All right, let's hear some theories about why this might be happening.
I never saw it, but then I did end up seeing Bird Box later, which felt like the same plot line.
Yeah, I think it's the same orientation.
Yeah,
it's very connected. It's like
disease
something
makes people
mysterious
run off of a cliff.
outside.
Yes.
Or like just want to die. Like it's basically like the earth is like, you know what y'all need? Die. Anyway. Okay, so how are you?
Actually, that relates to my check-in. So,
of course.
So, right, life is lifing, things are happening, but one of the things that I'm really excited to share is that after a pretty long dry spell of not really being able to like get into a good flow of reading fiction, I am into a book. I'm reading Station 11.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Which you had recommended, and I was remembering this. I was like, in the last 2 years, there's one other fiction book that I have read. But which was Miranda July's All Fours, which is excellent. But I've otherwise been in this dry spell where I haven't really been able to get into fiction. And this happens to me. This happens to me every few years across my adult life. I'm just like, I just go for like months or a year. But this was a long dry spell of like only reading nonfiction and not really not having like attention span for fiction. And the way that this is showing up right now is like, I'm so into this book that I am staying up until either midnight or 1 a.m, multiple nights in a row, in bed, reading this book. And it's like the best feeling to get into a book like this. And I feel like I'm going on a date with the book. You know what I mean? It's like I have a crush on the book and we're getting to hang out after hours. And it's like, so and I can feel that I'm like entering back into like I guess a juicy spell of like, I'm going to have a lot of books.
Monsoon season.
It's really nice. And I had just gotten, one of my kids is a huge fan of the Hunger Games series, as you know. And there's a new Hunger Games prequel book out called Sunrise on the Reaping that's following the story of Haymitch. It's his game.
Are you serious?
Yes. And so we just got it for her and she's already finished it. She says it's terrible.
Of course she has.
But in the way, and she means emotionally devastating. Not terrible as in bad,
she
but
felt feelings.
Terrible as in devastating. And so I think I'm going to read that next because I also love the series. But so how I'm doing is like, I'm tired because I'm reading, but very happy because I'm tired because I'm reading. Yeah, that's my check-in. How are you today?
I like your check-in. And I really do love that book. Did you also watch the series when it came out? Or is this your first experience of the whole story?
I'm gonna probably watch the show also, but
I'm feeling experiential envy because or not even envy, maybe it's curiosity because I just did it in reverse and
you watched the show first and then read the book.
I watched the show when it came out and loved it and then read the book just a couple months ago or last month and was so blown away by the book, but also by the differences between the two. I thought they did such a good job of adapting it. So, Okay. So I'm excited. What's happening over here in Adrian land? It's been
Over
a really
there
sweet
in
week.
Adrian Land.
It's a place you can come to, but not go to. All right. So, I am doing really well.
I'm dead.
I really love that. So I really started, like, I'm in this big book process. And so this week was a lot of like, I just keep finding myself doing these writing things that are like really
Writerly.
relaxing rituals for me. You know, I'm just like, oh yeah, like it's time to get in the bath and, you know, with my computer on my little bath tray. And
That makes me so
to,
nervous every time you describe it, but I know it works for you.
well, it only works. It only works because you don't have the computer plugged in, right? If the computer is plugged in, bad. Don't ever do that, right? But you have to have a fully charged computer, or, you know, somewhat charged computer. Actually, this was part of what was funny when I was doing it at one of the times this week, because I was like, I got in, it was like 13% battery, and I was like, that's enough to just do this quick thing that I need to do. And of course, like, totally wasn't, because when you're working on a book project, something of that scale, there's no quick. It's not a quick thing to jump in and out of, right?
Right.
But I'm developing my process. So I picked my font for the writing process, which is I use a different font each time, where I sort of pick like, this is the font that needs to be the same in Scrivener and in the Google Doc, because the Google Doc is where I like do my thoughts on the go. And then I transfer those over into the Scrivener. And then when I have these deeper dive times, I go and sort of open the Scrivener and I'm like, okay, I wrote down this sentence or this prompt to remind myself to write this story. Mm-hmm. And so now let's get into it. And I'm trying to do it a little bit more linearly. Like I have a bunch of different ideas, but I'm really trying to spend some time on like the front matter and getting really clear on like the big hairy idea of it all. So
cool.
That's been my a lot of what's been happening this week. And then I got to spend the weekend in Cincinnati with Danny.
Oh.
Danny wrote this short story, Homing Instinct, in Octavia's Brood. And 5 years ago, this incredible filmmaker reached out to say, could I make a film out of it, Lydia? And made what ended up being this like multi-dimensional 3-screen art installation that included all this photography and like homage of Octavia Butler's like works from the Huntington Library, and like all this documentation and pictures of all of us from the Octavia's Brood like launch year. And had like a whole wall that was just Octavia's gorgeous face. And then the film is just screening, and it's going now until June 8th in Cincinnati. So it was just this beautiful,
incredible
experience and like time travel, because it's been 10 years. And so it was also this moment of being like, oh yeah, like 15 years ago was the inception summer of Octavia's Brood. 10 years ago, it was published. And then 5 years ago, this film got in, you know, the inception of the film. And then now that comes out. And there's just something about the like Octavia projects take a little time, and it's worth it. Like what comes out is so beautiful. So sitting in all of that and feeling pretty grounded.
Can I tell you something that's related to this?
Tell me. Yes.
Finn is, for his African American literature and history class, is reading Octavia's Brood. It was,
Are you serious?
It was listed as one of the one of the books he could have assigned. And his teacher had no idea the connection and basically didn't believe him at first when he told her the connection. But
it's like, them's my
she was like,
actually.
No, but then she did believe him.
It's like, see how this is my mom's name? So,
and it was so funny because he's now read both of our stories in the collection. And
oh, wow.
In a couple of days ago, we were like going on a college tour together. And as we were walking along, he was like, I just started reading your story, Mom. And I gotta say, you're a really weird writer. And I was like, oh, you got to the belly lichen, huh? And he was like,
exactly.
Yeah. And I was like,
I love that belly
I was like,
lichen.
people either think it's cool or they think it's the most disgusting thing that they've ever read. And he was like, it's
yeah,
pretty
your
gross.
belly lichen is like
It's
the
pretty
cilantro
disgusting.
of literary features.
It is.
I know.
But anyway,
it's so funny because
literally reading the
I
whole
read it and I was just like, I'm
collection.
so excited. I love that. That makes me, I can't wait to talk to him the next time and hear what he's thinking about it all.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I know.
Yeah.
It's just
So
beautiful, all the threads that go with this project.
it really is. It really is. Yeah.
And how far
also
it spread.
Well, that piece, right? Because so many people came out and they were like, oh, like they just had experienced some aspect of Octavia's Brood totally separate from me, from Emergent Strategy, from Danny, from, it's just like, it's just so fascinating to see how people come across these things. And like when your picture's not on a book or whatever, people are just like, I don't know, I just came across this. And like, oh, it's connected to you. And so I love that too, that we're, 10 years gives a book time to go wild a little bit,
Totally.
and just be in the world and landing in different ways. So,
and then eventually be assigned to high school students.
And then be assigned to high school students, which isn't that living the dream? I'm like, do I want to shape young minds? Yes.
Indeed.
I do. Very much. Yeah, sister. So I also just wanted to shout out or name, I'm gearing up to go see Les Mis with the parents. And so I'm just very excited about that.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to miss this extremely momentous experience that you guys are about to have together. For listeners, everyone in the family is going to see Les Mis together in South Carolina, but me, for reasons related to stuff going on in my children's lives, I can't go this weekend with the rest of the family. But this is a musical that we have loved as a family for many years, and so it's a big deal.
That some of the like revolutionary root system, like I'm like
Can you hear the people singing the songs of angry men?
So good. Like, that's all I want to hear. Songs of angry people.
Yes.
Anyway, so
songs of angry people. Exactly.
I'm also interested in it because people have been singing Les Mis songs as an act of resistance during this administration in various places. And it just makes me like, I love that. I just love the idea that like we can be so revolutionary in our art in ways that like are subterfuge in times of oppression. And I'm really excited to revisit that with the family and be like, here's where we are in the arc of this revolution.
Yeah. We haven't hit the exact barricade moment, but there'll be many barricades. Some
people are already in barricade mode.
Right.
Okay. So I think we covered all the things. I'm ready to hear our question now.
Okay. I'm going to read our listener's question. This is such a beautiful question. And then we're just going to go. All right. This is a question from one of our longtime listeners. As two deeply sensitive, life-givingly vulnerable beings who are also warriors of love and truth, I often wonder if you ever receive not just critical feedback, but outright hate or trolling. How do you move through moments of receiving hatred or even threats and stay grounded and fortified in your purpose? Do you just say to yourself, quote, oh, well, that person is lost? Or does it sometimes stick with you? How do you move on, away, or through that psychic and energetic kind of attack? And if you feel called to take it deeper, how do you move through betrayal from someone you've been in community with, in love with, or in deep trust with? Have you ever experienced the heartbreak of realizing that someone you believed was on your side began to move against you, maybe even conspired to harm you? As we all navigate the complexity of surviving, there can be compassion, there can be context. But what happens when that person refuses to engage, won't come to mediation, won't participate in transformative justice? How do you sit with that truth and still hold the belief that our liberation is bound up together? Maybe it's the Pisces in me, but it's so hard to leave someone, quote unquote, behind, especially when you can see their potential for transformation.
What a beautiful question.
So beautiful. And I kind of think we should take it in two parts a little bit, because
I think so too.
The first part does feel kind of separate from the second part to me.
Yeah. Do you have a place where you feel like starting in it? Besides saying, yeah, girls.
Yeah,
we have
girls. Yeah, girlies. Well, and I think I'll just say, I think maybe it would be starting with do we ever receive outright hate or trolling?
Yeah.
Threats, hatred, and how do we stay grounded and fortified in our purpose when that's happening? Yeah. And I think um, I have experienced this. You have experienced this. We, as co-hosts of this show, have experienced it. And so I think maybe we could start by talking a little bit about what have been some of our practices for staying grounded and rooted and connected to each other, you know, even inside of those moments. And then we can talk about, I think the connection I'm drawing is that like there's one way that it impacts us to receive like online or internet-based hatred and trolling from people that we could perceive as strangers, or we may our relationship to them might be that this person is a stranger to me. Then there's another layer where and I think people in circumstances like you and I, and maybe a lot of public figures or artists, people who create work that other people experience, there's a second layer of experience where you might receive hatred or trolling, or you might receive like online attacks or psychic attacks, threatening behavior from people who are in a parasocial relationship with you. So they perceive themselves to be in a relationship with you, but you're not in a relationship with them. Right. Yes. So there's that layer. And then the deepest layer, I think, of this listener's question is about when those attacks are coming from within a community that you do acknowledge as your own, right? It's like, these are my people. These are the people I rock with. Maybe this is my family. Maybe these are my comrades, like people I organize with. And that's even, you know, so in some ways it's like how to cope with it is going to look different just based on like what layer of your soma is even being like hit or impacted by it.
Yeah, this is really good, sister. I mean, I'm thinking a lot about like, oh, when are the moments when this has happened in my own life? When are the moments when this has happened in our life? And I'm like, it's a definite yes. And I think that if you are any kind of public figure in any way right now, or doing work that other people can see, we are swimming in the waters of troll. We are swimming in the waters of like hateration. And literally, I just saw some piece that was talking about how the White House is trolling people both through its like social media accounts, but also like every decision that's made is like, it's very much like it's trolling. You know, it's just like, I'm going to do things in the cruelest possible way. I'm going to communicate in the cruelest possible way and move in the cruelest possible way. And so I think that how it has come to me, there's critique, which I feel like I need critique and I want critique. And like, I don't trust people who can't take critique or can't handle critique. And I think at first, in early years of coming into that social public space, I was sensitive to critique, and I was like, oh, it feels really different to receive critique from like 500 people all at one time or something, you know, like I feel like that.
Yeah. Right.
And I remember like cycles of that and just being like, whoa, like this is very intense. And the intensity of like that many people having a negative reaction to something you've done or your work or whatever at one time, it can be hard to hold the discernment of like, are y'all just haters? Are you giving me an authentic critique? You know, it's different from an era where people would be like, oh, like this magazine wrote a meaningful critique, but there's a deep engagement with your work or something like that. Versus
like a review
now where it's like, I'm just giving you one line to be like, you ain't shit or something, you know? So, right. So there's that piece. And I think in terms of how I'll speak how I deal with it. And then I'm curious to hear for you, because I do think this is a place, even as we do this podcast together, where we have very different ways of responding to stuff in general. So I'm like, for me, I think there's a dissociation that happens first where I'm just like, don't see it, don't feel it. Like that has nothing to do with me. Like they're on their own journey. You know, I can feel some level of like wanting to bypass it, right? Wanting to be like, I don't want to take that on or take that in. And especially if I can say that, oh, that's coming from strangers or that's coming from people who they don't understand me or they don't know me or whatever. So I will like just keep it far away. And then there have been some critiques that felt like, or some of these sort of trolling experiences where I was like, oh, these people are really coming at me in a very personal way. So I've had experiences where people were like attacking relationships that were really important to me, like coming on and, you know, they were extending it beyond me. I'm like, it's not like I aimed to become a publicly known person, but I did take on the responsibility. Like when it became clear that that was the direction things were going on, I was like,
Right.
I'm willing to do this because the ideas that are coming through me in this lifetime matter. And I'm going to have to be in the public eye to move them in a certain way.
Yeah.
But where I felt most defensive or most like, oh, hell no, was when it started to spill. So it was like, oh, you're trying to come at all these other people in my life who didn't actually sign up for this and have nothing to do with this and are just my friends or whatever. So what I noticed in myself is it's much easier for me to defend someone else than it is to defend myself. And it's probably like the last full response that comes up in me that's like defense. Like even I'll have compassion for the other person before I'll have defense for myself. So I have to check that and be like, hold on. The way that person is coming at me is actually really harmful or inappropriate, or like there's no excuse for talking to me like that, right? Like there's nothing I've actually done in the world that generates that level of reaction. And that doesn't mean don't critique me. Like I do think that I've done things that deserve critiquing because I like to learn in public.
Right.
So part of what I'm doing is being like, I'm trying to be as authentic a person as I can in the public sphere. And so then even when that happens, when stuff comes back, I'm like, there's an excitement. I'm like, okay, people are actually engaging in the work. And even if they disagree, like now we're having a conversation I'm interested in. All of that feels fine to me. But when it's people are just coming at me and I'm like, oh, I actually have to protect myself right now. And some of that protection has been getting offline a lot, like I feel like if online to offline is a seesaw or something, like I feel like I was tipped so much on the online side. And now I feel like I've really tipped the other way where I'm like, I go online, but it's like I dip in and then I tilt back over into the offline realm where if someone's trolling me to my face, we're going to have a conversation, right? Like in the offline world, I'm like, I can see the relationship. It's visible, it's tangible, and I can't run away from it. Like I can't just block you. Like we live in this community, so I'm going to see you and I have to be able to navigate that. Right. And I feel like I'm really trying to practice that so that I can come back into this online space more fortified and just be like, okay, like what if this is real? What if this is a critique? What if this is an attack? Is there any of it that's actually dangerous to me? So that's that's sort of a first take at it for me. I do want to say, to be very vulnerable about the very first time that it happened in a big way for me, which was around the essay that became We Will Not Cancel Us. The very first time that was like, okay, like there's some critique here, but then it's wrapped in what feels like a really, really a way that people are expressing that's just completely dismissing my humanity for the sake of whatever they're up to. The first time I felt that, it took me a long time to really like recover from that and to recenter my humanity, like to get my feet back on the ground. And I want to name that because I'm surrounded by a lot of other people who've been through the experience too. And I think we keep it very private, like sometimes people come on and be like, y'all, this really hurts. But trying to tell people who are causing you harm and don't have a relationship and you can't tell how real or not real they are, how much they're hurting you. It's like, let me show you the most vulnerable part of me so that you can keep causing further harm. No. Like I understand why we don't necessarily want to do that. But I also know behind the scenes that like a lot of people don't have the mental or emotional fortitude to go through that and keep wanting to make their gifts into the world in that way. And so I just want to name that like my spiritual work before that was the reason I was able to get through it. And it deepened the spiritual work that I've done after, where I'm like, oh, right. Like I belong to the earth. The earth made me. The earth holds me. The earth like feels like there's a dose of gravity that belongs to me. Like I already belong fully to this world and to the experience I'm having in it. And no matter how anyone else feels about it, like my belonging is intact. So how do I make sure I'm in right relationship with my own belonging, right? And not letting it be something that becomes part of someone else's fickle experiences that they're having online. Like my belonging is not for someone else's entertainment. My belonging is not, they don't care what happens to me afterwards. And like, not to be dramatic about it, but people do self-harm. Like really bad outcomes come from that trolling. So I feel like very protective of myself where I'm like, you can hate my work or not like my ideas or whatever, but you don't get to have a say on whether I want to live or not, or whether I feel belonging or whether I feel safe in my community. Like that's my work to generate and protect those parts of my life.
Whew. Wow,
Yeah.
sister. Thank you for sharing all of that and sharing so
Yeah.
vulnerably. And yeah. Oof.
Mhm.
I also just am like the bar around like there's a dose of gravity that's just for me. I'm just like, girl, I love your brain. It's so beautiful.
I'm just like, this is mine. I get to be
beautiful.
here too.
It's so beautiful. And it is really, in my experience too, there is an element that's about like, yeah, that is about fortification and like being able to stand in like my inherent dignity and the truth of my life in the face
Yes.
of whatever the thing is. And
Yes.
I guess I'll say, yeah, I've had such a like strange journey around this because I probably have had fewer of what I would consider to be like online attacks by and being trolled or bullied online by people who are hating on my work. I have had more of the experience of having people turn on me who I perceive to be in community with me. And I've had the experience, unfortunately, of having people who experience themselves to be in a parasocial relationship with me try to infiltrate my life or stalk me in some way.
Yeah.
And all of those things are equally scary, right? All of those things are not equally scary, I guess. All of those things are frightening things to experience.
They're frightening in various ways. Yeah.
And I want to really like come alongside you in the like it's also really hard to talk about.
Yes.
Especially, and not to do the like, woe is me, I'm a public figure, but like, I think there is an element where if you are a public figure in any way, what I've experienced is that often there's just like people lack capacity to even hear about what are the shadow sides of having like any kind of public notoriety. And this is one of the definite shadow sides is that like people behave in really, really wild ways. And so that can look like bullying and online trolling. And it can, in my experience, I've had more of the experiences of infiltration and stalking.
An obsession.
Obsession. Yeah. Experiencing obsession. And then, because I've been slower to even be able to like acknowledge, recognize, and understand my own, the change in how people relate to me. There were some misses that happened in my life where like, I didn't realize that I was being infiltrated,
Honey, same. I had to change my whole dating life.
Yeah. Right. Like, I mean, there's like a whole, it's like similarly, it's like you end up having to develop all these protocols, right? For like, how do you live your life and how do you move through the world with an understanding that like, that there's something else that's happening inside of some people that's not happening inside of you. I'm learning
but it's not
to kind
mutual.
of, and it's not
like,
mutual.
Oh, we didn't get to set a culture together. We didn't
Right.
get to come up with these
Right.
together. It's like, you think you have access and I need
Right.
to set a boundary.
Right. And so, so I'll say, and so again, going back to our listener's question, in response to the first part of the question, the part that's about like being attacked by people receiving hatred, because I would put those things in relationship to each other. Like hatred and obsession are kind of two sides of the same coin, right? Like, where do I feel comfortable like going alone when I'm out in community? I do think about it to that degree. And like, when do I give people my contact information? Like what are the conditions under which I'm willing to actually let someone have access to me in that way?
That's right.
And when it comes to online though, I'm just like super fucking cutthroat. Like I'm like, I think, you are such a sweetheart. So your move of like, I have compassion first before I go to a place of like protecting myself. I'm the opposite. I'm like,
Yes.
I will, and I've always been this way basically since I joined social
You
media.
were
Like,
also since you were born.
yes, it's true. I'm just like, I will just cut you off. I will just cut you off. I will just cut you off. If you said something I didn't like on my page, I will just delete it. Like, so I've always done that. Like, I'm not actively on Facebook anymore, but like when I would post things on Facebook, if people would comment and say things that were offensive, I would just delete their comments. And now even on my Instagram, if someone comments something that is offensive or obviously an outright attack, I just delete it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
As soon as people start exhibiting that kind of behavior, which to me is just like such a clear indicator that like we're not actually in a real relationship. Like you're projecting something onto me so that you can be having a conversation in public that is not with me. Block, delete.
Right.
I mean, we're not in community.
Let's slow down right there because, you know, we just had this conversation with Sarah Schulman and she was talking about this, like, when you're talking to someone who you see as your enemy or your opposition, it's not actually about the conversation, but you're trying to create a public spectacle.
Ding, ding, ding.
And use that public spectacle to have a different conversation, right? And so I'm like, if you're having a conversation that I think is in service of movement and justice and the things I care about, then I don't mind necessarily being a foil for it, you know, but rarely is it appropriate that I would be that foil because I'm on the same path with you, right? I'm next to you trying to do that,
exactly.
Right? So, so I'm always like, I have a, you know, for me, when I see people saying, oh, I want to turn to this person who has spent their whole life fighting for justice and I want to accuse them of the thing that we're saying our enemies do, which, right, we're all swimming in the same waters. We all live inside of a capitalist, supremacist, divisive, antagonistic, superiority-based elite system, whatever, right? We're all in that.
We're all in it.
So yes, the cells of that are in all of our cells, are in all of our bodies. I mean, right? Like it's not, you know, and I always think about that. It's like it lives in our heads as well. We're having to decolonize as we try to decolonize the world. But so I try to hold that, right? That I'm like, okay, you're up to something. I'm not the right target. Or if there's a critique I need to hold, and Miriam Kaba said that, she's like, take anything in there that is actually useful, apply it, learn from it, and keep going and let the rest go. Like you just do not have time for that. And I remember that being like so useful to hear and to integrate that I was like, oh, there's this bigger thing happening where we're all swimming in these hyper negative waters. And then because people sometimes are not well, or sometimes they're not connected to movement, or they're not connected to strategy, or they're not connected to outlets that can help move their political energy or their mental unrest, or I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on.
Right.
So that's what happens for me when I see someone where I'm like, if you have a critique and you make a statement, that's fine. If you start to obsessively come at me, obsessively post, obsessively engage, then I know that like whatever's going on isn't actually about me, and I don't have to pick up my side of whatever that rope would be. You know, I'm like, we're not in a mutual conversation, and you're not moving in what feels like solidarity to me.
Right. You know, it's like because we live in this incredibly divisive time, and because of the way that the like really legitimate political framework, again, Black feminist political framework of identity politics has been co-opted both by the right and by the left, right? And then like bastardized and used in a way to like mean this whole other thing. It's like because
Barbara Smith says this beautiful quote that we ran with the identity and dropped the politics.
Exactly. Right.
Exactly.
Both
sides, all sides.
So it's like because we're swimming in that, it means that part of what will happen too is this like if someone with a set of vulnerable or marginalized identities makes a critique, especially a critique in public, then there's like a bandwagon effect where it's like, oh, because that person is fill in the blank, whatever the identity is, we're all just going to automatically circle up around that person and assume that the critique is legitimate, assume that the accusations are legitimate, assume that like that the way that this is all unfolding is as it should be because this is what they need, you know? And what I feel like I've most struggled with this inside of left organizing spaces. Because to me, like when I see this happening, to me, it's like, it's so obvious that it's like disorganizing behavior. And my whole thing always with organizers is I'm like, if you're being infiltrated and disorganized by someone, it does not matter whether they are doing it on purpose. So if they're doing it because they're actually a representative of the government, or if they're doing it because they are so like in their trauma loop that they can't actually control their own behavior, like regardless of the reason why the disorganizing and infiltration behavior is happening, it has to actually be addressed as disorganizing behavior, right? And so for me, that's one of those places where I'm like, we can't just say that because someone has a set of vulnerable identities, they're not responsible for bringing a critique in a politically aligned way, right?
Yes.
And then we have to be willing to, I feel we also have to be willing to like to move with and then live with the consequences, right? It's like if I'm not willing to address the disorganizing, then I have to live with the consequence that my political project is going to die as a result. If I am willing to address the disorganizing, which usually means like removing that person from the environment in some way, or setting a boundary or holding a boundary or whatever, I have to accept the consequence that it means that not everyone can participate in the political project in that particular moment in time, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that because I think, again, because of running with the identity and dropping the politics, we struggle with actually holding the boundary that not everyone can participate in the project right now. You know, which isn't the same as saying not everyone belongs here. It just means that like not everyone can do this work at this moment in time. And
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that, because I also feel, you know, to bring it to, I'm just like circling, you know, full circling. Like when I think about the times that this has happened in my life where it was the most intense, almost every time when I did bring any attention to the person, what became clear, and often because of their own articulation, was I'm in a crisis. That, you know, someone is in a crisis, right? They're like in a mental health crisis, or they're in a organizational crisis, or a crisis of belonging, or whatever it is. But I was like, they're in a crisis, and crisis. We live in a society right now that maybe crisis is the number one production.
Right.
This, you know, if you think about the global project, it's like crises is like the number one thing that we are producing at all times. And so of course that's happening to people who are like, I'm trying to manage this whole process at an individual level without the adequate support. And so to come to like the listener's question of like, how do you deal with it? A lot of times, and this will sound very like, you know, being a sweetheart or whatever, but I'm like, a lot of times it is like meditation, or like just being like, oh, this person is hurting, and me engaging in this conversation publicly with them will bring a level of pressure to them that's actually not good, right?
That's right.
Like, I'm like, you have, you know, a lot of times I'll be like, oh, you have 100 followers or 200 followers or whatever, and you're bringing this thing and you're trying to galvanize some energy, and like 4 or 5 people are showing up in my comments or whatever. But I'm like, I have over 400,000 followers, and then I have a bunch of other people offline who deeply support me and are deeply aligned with this work. And if they were to all seriously engage, or even a portion of them seriously engage, it could get very quickly destructive or harmful. Or, you know, I'm like, your humanity doesn't need to be dismissed. You're already in a crisis. And so I don't need to add to the crisis. What can I do to set a boundary between me and the crisis?
Yes.
So when it's something like that, where I'm like, okay, there's a level of unwellness that's playing out inside of this, I really try to feel for that, notice that. And sometimes it's an energetic sense too. I'm like, something doesn't feel right here. I'm just going to, you know, see my way out of it to the degree that I can. Just a quick editor's note here. I do have like over 400,000 people who follow me online, but when I use the term followers here, I don't necessarily mean these are 400,000 plus people who are like, I'm going to ride where Adrienne says to ride, or do what she says to do, or how she says to do it. In fact, that's exactly my point. There's all these people who are connected to or follow my work somewhere online, And they may agree with my ideas, but they may not be in the practices yet, or they may not know how to get into those practices. And so I've had it happen before where people thought they were protecting me, but they were actually doing stuff that felt harmful to me, felt like moves towards cancellation or move towards public shaming and humiliation that I wasn't asking for. And so that's part of it, right? Is that I'm like, if there's someone who's already vulnerable and already going through it and already feeling isolated and already not feeling seen, the kind of attention that they need is not the kind of attention that's going to come from a decentralized internet mob. And I think that's right now the main thing that happens in that space. So I just wanted to slow that piece down a bit. And yeah, I've got a wide diversity of people who follow my work and who tune into my work. And some of them agree and some of them disagree and everything in between. And I like that. It keeps me sharp. Some of it is like people are they're sharpening and trying to figure out their analyses. And I might be a part of that, right? It's like, oh, she's light skinned or she's college educated or she's like, whatever it is, right? There's just something that's like, oh, you're not down enough because of some aspect of your life that you have no control over. You're like, now we're going to dismiss you for that or whatever. I'm like,
Right.
Great. Like do whatever you need to do that makes, if it contributes to your sense of belonging, I actually don't have to do anything with it. Like you're using an avatar version of me. You don't actually know me. You're clearly not actually engaging with my ideas. Those feel like two different buckets.
Yeah.
And then there's this third bucket where I'm like, these are people who are in movement and are bringing something that feels like trolling or hateration. And I'm like, where is that coming from? And so I want to just hone in there because that's where, when you say like, it doesn't matter why you're doing the infiltration behavior, I want to speak about something that I've been thinking of as like behavioral infiltration, where it's like, you're not making a choice to infiltrate. You're not even thinking of yourself as trying to disorganize or disrupt, but because you're swimming in waters of divisiveness all the time, it doesn't matter anymore if you're part of an organized effort or a disorganized effort because your behaviors are fundamentally infiltration behaviors and they're fundamentally divisive behaviors. So you do what I think of as oppressor behaviors, where you're like, there's an us and a them. We are better than them. We are attacking them. They don't know as much as us. They don't see the world as well as we do. We have superior over them, right? Whenever you're behaving that way, we're like, we are better than someone, and that's our politic, right?
Right.
I'm like, unfortunately, too much of our movement slipped into the comfort of that, where we can be like, oh yeah, we're even better than the people. We're better than MAGA. We're better than this. We're better than that. It's like just identifying all these enemies and being like, we're just better than them. And
then turning that on each other and being like, my political analysis is better than yours.
Right. Because all you can do with that is keep topping and topping and topping. King of the Hill. It's like you know, that it just becomes its own nonstop playing out game. And so part of what I keep finding myself doing is, and just to say, it's all exacerbated now by misinformation. And we're heading into a new zone where that misinformation is going to be compounded by like, literally being able to make videos of people that are not true and like all this stuff that like has nothing to do with reality. All of that is like bubbling, toiling, right? So for me, a lot of what I'm trying to be in the practice of is like, how do I walk away from the competition at all, right? And how do I, as part of my trying to let go of the elite aspects of things, I'm like, how do I notice that I'm reacting to an attack? I'm not actually engaged in that. Check my fight or flight reactions, settle it down. Am I actually in danger? Or is someone going to not like me online?
Right. Two different things.
I'm like, they're two different things. And most of the time they don't actually engage with each other. They can hurt my feelings maybe, but like, is this going to make my sister not like me? Is this going to make my partner not like me? Is this going to make my local community that I rely on turn against me in any way? And when I check that and I'm like, oh wait, I'm actually mycelially deeply rooted to people who know me and they know my heart, my soul, they know what I'm working on. And I get to be imperfect. I get to be adaptive. I get to be in community.
Yes.
I get to be vulnerable. I get to be human. I get to be humble. And I also get to be an individual, because a lot of times those trolling moments come when they're like, why are you not doing something I want you to do that I think all society should be doing? And I'm like, I, as an individual, am not going to be able to change the whole thing by myself. I am trying to constantly find the community with which to make changes, right?
Right. Right.
And whatever the priority is in that moment, where it's like, why didn't you post about this? Why didn't you take a picture that showed this? Why didn't you do, it's like different concerns people have, but at the underlying root of it, the best case scenario is that person's like, why aren't you being in solidarity with me in the way I want you to be? And like, when that's happening, I'm like, okay, now I can see you and I can tune in and I can decide, is that actually even in alignment with my politic? And it's like, I don't know, I can feel myself drop down and be like, oh, there's a lot of things that I'm unaligned with. Not all of them are the same priority for me. And that person has a different priority. I can let, just sort of like, okay, you're moving on that path.
Yeah. I mean, and I think I've heard you talk also recently about the relationship between this idea of competing priorities and the political divisiveness of our time, and the ways that people, it's like the real way that people do have competing political priorities. Like some issues are just more important to people than others, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a way that if that is true, then in our current left culture, it results in a sort of divisive accusation of like, if this thing isn't the priority for you, then you're abandoning trans people, you're abandoning Black people, you're abandoning disabled people, you're abandoning people who need abortions, you're you know what I mean? It's like fill in the blank. If the issue that is my priority organizing issue isn't yours, then that means that you're abandoning this group of people. And
exactly.
I would love to hear you speak more to that element of things as well.
Well, I think, I think that when I came into like organizing work at all, a huge part of what I was trained to do was to show up and meet people where they were at and build relationship towards freedom. And the assumption was never that their priority was going to be the same as mine, but more, we're going to have some different priorities. Can we get them to line up? So if I'm trying to organize to save the earth and you're trying to organize to get the trash picked up on your street, we can align, and there's something we can do that would actually nourish both of our perspectives, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now I feel like we've lost some of that like nuance and complexity that like good organizing relies on. So now, we're in this time where like for some communities, what's going on with COVID is still the very top priority. For some, it's what's going on in Palestine. For others, it's what's happening with the earth or with democracy or with trans life or with other things. My organizing orientation is they are all correct. They are all top priorities.
Right.
All of these things matter. And as one person who plays a more facilitative role, where I'm like, they all matter to me. I'm not actually I don't need to put one ahead of the other. I want to stagger myself and care for each of them, right? Care for each of these things. And so
pace myself as I do so.
And pace myself as I do so, and recognize like, that actually being able to have solidarity between those different priorities, that's how we start to see what is the common pattern between all of these. Every community that I just mentioned, the negative impact we feel comes from a very small handful of elite billionaire people who are monopolizing power, monopolizing resource, and making very violent decisions.
Right.
They are able to manipulate masses of people through these divisive politics in order to move against each other rather than against them, right? And so for me right now, I'm like, yes, can you recognize that the part of you that's like, this is my number one priority, this is my number one care? I'm like, great. How many other people with a different number one can you get in alignment with? Because that's how you start to have some mass impact, right, on these complex problems. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's a great invitation.
Yeah.
That's a great invitation.
Thank you, sister.
I want us to turn a little bit of attention to the second half of the question, which we kind of addressed a little bit to some extent, but this piece around like
that more intimate betrayal.
The more intimate betrayal. And what happens particularly when there's I'm tuning into the shape I'm tuning into the sort of physical shape of what the listener is articulating, the feeling that someone is going to be left behind if I don't stay in relationship with them to keep working on changing and healing with them. then they're going to get left behind. And
but also, like, if they won't participate in, it's like they've done something heartbreaking. They don't want to participate in a healthy process, but they do want to be able to, stay in that betrayal practice.
Right. Right.
In some way.
Right.
I wonder what this brings up for you, sister. Like, I feel like, I feel like I know that this brings up some stuff for me, which is all pretty tender, but I also feel like I'm curious about, how it feels in you to even hear this question.
Yeah, it is tender. It's very tender. I've absolutely had this experience of being betrayed by comrades that I trusted, inviting people into process, having them refuse to actually engage with me in like a what I would consider to be like adult, energetically equal kind of like,
exactly.
Yeah, we're gonna really wrestle with this together. But then continuing to just behave in really like distorted ways, while being in community. And, I mean, to me, it goes back to the point that you were making about, you were saying how like, in relationship to that first really big internet attack that you experienced, that like it was your spiritual practice that got you through it and that led you into deeper practice. I will say that I've had a similar experience around these kinds of more intimate heartbreaks in political community that like, particularly spiritual practices that support me to remember, my purpose, to remember my inherent dignity, to remember my goodness, and to really guide me, to guide my actual knowing and my actual doing. Because I think what I notice with myself is, and this is lifelong work for me, but what I notice with myself is how easy it is for me to get hooked by someone else's work and make it my own.
Ooh, say it again.
It's so easy for me to get hooked by someone else's work. And then
like their spiritual work,
work, and
their
then
emotional work,
and then do it,
work,
and then like take it on as though it's my work to do. Sometimes but it might be oversimplifying to say that I'm doing it on their behalf, because I think what ends up happening is I'm actually doing it inside myself, right?
Yes.
But then
something you needed to do it.
Right. So it's like someone has to do this work. So I guess it's going to be me. But then, so there's a hook, and then there's a process that I have to go through of differentiating, and then returning to my intuitive knowing about like, what is it that I must do that only I can do? It goes back to the solidarity question that you had posed a few episodes ago, where you're like, what is it that you can do that you will do?
You actually will do.
That you actually will do. And in order to like assess that, you have to really be able to connect to your intuitive knowing, I think. And so for me, when I've been inside of those times where I'm hooked into someone else's, wound.
Yes.
The process, there's always a process where I have to disentangle myself, differentiate, and connect back to my own intuitive knowing of like, what is it that I actually will do based on who I am, who I exclusively am. Like there's only me. Like I every day, I mean, I wouldn't even have described this until this moment as a daily practice, but because of the Chani app, it really is a practice where like there's a moment every day where I look at my natal chart. Yes. And it reminds me that I am an absolutely unique and precious being, capable of unique and precious things that only I can do. And so it's not worth my life
there's nobody like you.
There's no one like me. Yeah. And it's not worth my life to get stuck or hooked into what someone else's work is. And and it's complicated, because I think the thing that I really resonate with in this question is how painful it can be when, because of the intimacy that you have with the other person, what the work is. You know, because
Oh, yeah.
when you reach a certain depth of intimacy with someone, I think we've all experienced this. There's a way that you can see what their work is that they can't see for themselves, right?
Yes.
And they
Yeah.
can see the same thing about you, you know?
Yes.
And so in the
Yeah.
differentiation, part of it is being like, this thing that I see, that I uniquely see because of the intimacy we have, is still not my responsibility. My only responsibility is to hold it with love and care. But sometimes holding it with love and care it means distancing, means Prentice Hemphill's boundary at which I can love you and me simultaneously. It means,
It
you know what
means
I mean?
that.
Sometimes it means we're not in relationship with each other, you know? And again, going back to the consequences, it's like, if I can connect to my intuitive knowing about what I can do and what I will do, that includes being able to accept the consequences of what happens. Right. And like, I can say there's, you know, I remember once writing this down and being like, wow, this feels true. That like becoming an adult, it means like accruing a longer and longer list of people you no longer fuck with. And,
Honey.
you know, and like,
Sorry.
especially in my 30s, like I just started accruing. It's not a super long list, but it's like, there's a list of people that I'm like, I don't fuck with that person. And if anyone asks me, I'll say it. I don't fuck with that person. And I wouldn't recommend you fuck with them either, but it's up to you. But like, for me, that's a consequence I accept. I accept the consequence that like the actual truth of the rupture, the actual truth of the connection, the actual truth of the story is we're not in relationship with each other. And that's actually okay. Like there's nothing wrong with that. That's just the truth.
That's right. Oh.
Yeah. What comes
Go
up
off,
for you?
sister.
What comes? I know.
Go off, sister.
Go off.
Go off. I love when
Don't
you
get me started.
Well, and I love it because I do feel like in some ways, you know, as the younger sister, boundaries have come easier for you than they have for me. And I it's like watching you. Made me, I'm like, what? You can do that? So I'm like, oh, like, I don't want to. So, and I love this because I really do believe solidarity is a relationship. Like I do in all times. So I'm like, oh, if someone's acting up and they're in my community and they're causing harm, I'm like, it still needs to be an act of solidarity that happens, right?
Yes.
Like that person has to decide, like, I want to show up differently in this community. And if I don't want to show up differently and the community needs me to, then I will have to go, right? Like the community will push me out because it's a relationship that has to happen. And if I'm not able to do my part, period, right? So I love that that's where you landed.
Yeah.
Because for me, I think that's one of the hardest pieces. I spent such a long time trying to chase after people being like, don't you want me? Don't you want this love? You know, whether it was organizational or something else. I was just like, I'm trying to offer you like, you know, connectivity and relationship and like care and room to be a human and room to make mistakes. But you do have to acknowledge and like come back. Like we could mediate, we could get, you know, and I just feel like I poured so much energy to people who were saying no, right? They were like, no, I don't want what you're offering. And I don't want to do the work that you're asking me to do. And I don't want you, right? Like whatever you're offering, I don't want that.
Yeah.
And so the betrayal, like I've even had people, you know, who were like betraying me because they said they wanted me, but not in the terms that I was offering. Right. Like I've had that with different collaborators before where they were like, if you work the way I will work, then we can stay, you know, then I'll keep collaborating with you. And if you don't, I'm going to say horrible things about you or whatever it is. Right. And I'm like, okay, like I didn't have to accept, right. I just like accept it because I'm like, I okay. Like, I'm like, I can't, you know, there's only so much sweetheart. You can do. I'm a sweetheart, but also it's like, I know that my precious time on earth, for me, my precious time on earth is not supposed to be spent trying to convince anybody of anything. Like, that's just not what I'm on earth to do. Right.
Hell yeah.
And I don't think it works. So there's like a real accepting. I have put lots of time and energy into the work of trying to change other people, trying to fix people. This is just a variation on codependency, right? It's just being like, oh, like this is organizational codependency, where because we are comrades or coworkers, I'm expecting that like the way you hurt me, like I can take on the load of that and then I can make you change. And I'm going to get right next to you and I'm going to guide you through this mediation, or I'm going to guide you through whatever it is. And it's just like, I can't make you change. I can't make you do anything you don't want to do. That's one of the most fundamental things I have learned about humans. And it's so liberating to understand it, like not individual to individual and rarely organizational to individual, right? Like something has to change in a person and make them want connection.
Yes.
And sometimes you only get that by setting the clear boundaries of like, you can go find belonging elsewhere, but you will not be able to get it here unless you're willing to participate in the collective process, whatever that is, right? But then that person usually will just go somewhere else and like be toxic there. And I have to also accept that. So
right.
I think a lot of this, like my biggest answer to this question is acceptance. And I 3 kinds of acceptance are like tumbling around in here. So like one is accepting that like all human relationships have an aspect of struggle to them. So just like, oh, we're in movement, we're in relationship, like there's going to be some struggle there. And I remember Grace Lee Boggs, she used to sign off her emails in love and struggle. And I was like, well, what if it didn't have to be the struggle? What if it was just a love? You know, and she's like, girl, you
Love and
are
light.
5 and I am 3,000 years old. So like, you know, struggle is actually a component of this that is non-negotiable. And I feel like finally I have accepted that I'm like, anything that I want to do meaningfully, there will be an aspect of struggle.
Yes.
Right. So accepting struggle and then accepting the no, like we just talked about, like I have to just accept when someone is saying no to the community or change offer that I'm making. And like, it feels like a betrayal because it seemed like they were saying yes. And maybe they were saying yes, but whatever has happened, we've reached a precipice that they will not cross with me. And I have to accept the no there. And maybe it's a reflection on me. I'll go do my work around that, but I'm not going to get it by, you know, it's like a Treo in the swamp. I can't drag this horse through. I've got to let it go, accept the no. Right. And then I think the last piece is accepting that you can't win something publicly that you can't win privately. So this is where that piece around like the subtweeting or like taking something and making it a big campaign and being like, this person, we couldn't get them to be accountable privately. And so now we're just going to blow their life up and destroy them. And that's going to do it. Right. And I haven't seen that work. You know, I haven't seen. First of all, I think so many of the subtweets get lost. Like people write the most beautiful messages to people, but they send it as like a sub message, right? I'm not going to name this person. Somebody needs to do da 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 da. And I have definitely done this in the past. And I'm like, you're saying that's a beautiful communication, but you should actually give it directly to that person. And if you just have to accept that if they're not going to receive it privately, it's not going to like have some better impact publicly. And those public campaigns, often people have to take a defensive stance that makes it really hard for them to also get in a flexible stance or in a stance where change can happen, right? So for me, like the long and short of it is like, if we can't talk, because I'm always like that, I'm like, can we talk about it? If we try to talk about it, you know, and like sometimes I'm like, if we can't talk about it one-on-one, can we mediate it? Okay, mediation didn't get us there. Okay, then like, let's go our different ways. Right. Like if we can't talk, I'm like, I am now only in a relationship where I'm like, I'm with people who are down to have authentic conversations with me. They're down to be accountable. I'm down to be accountable. And we're moving together. No one's perfect. We're figuring it out. And I grieve the rest. And I still grieve. There are people that I still grieve. You know, my letting go process is a slower one. I'm a love goddess. I want to keep it all. I want to keep everyone.
Yeah.
You know? So there's people that I have to be like, dang, I really thought we were going to do this or going to do that. And I have to be the one who's slowly like, oh, we're not going to do that. Like, there's not some contortion I can make that will make that actually happen.
Right.
But let me keep bringing my attention, attention of wanting to create change to the places where I can actually have impact because it's not going to be here.
Yes. Oh, beautiful. I love that. I love everything about that story.
Yeah. Well, there's something that you say, sister, because I think this feels very related, which is like, I'm trying to find good practice partners. And there's a way that you talk about this that has like really helped me. Where you talk about it in your martial arts practice. And I wonder if you could, maybe we could ground there.
Yeah. I mean, I think all the time about my list and our listeners, my listeners, our listeners have heard me speak on this, that for me, like my practice community, my Aikido community just continues to be such a beautiful model for me of like what it means to learn in relationship and how important it is to be in, like, in our dojo, we refer to each other as practice partners, like, so when I run into someone outside of the dojo and I'm like introducing them, I'm like, this is my practice partner, so and so, because that's the relationship. And and it's such a beautiful relationship, and it's both it's like dynamic, it's loving, can be very confrontational. You have to work through a lot of fear together, and while staying like loving and caring with one another. And then there's an interesting component where there's a structure by which you are responsible for one another's growth and learning. And when you, and particularly in like a traditional practice community like ours is, there's a rank structure through which that has to do with how long you've been training and what your responsibilities are in the dojo. There's like a rank structure that kind of dictates how responsible you are for other people's growth and learning. And so
the idea is that like when you're first learning, you can really be attending to your own learning process. That's all you need to be responsible for in the space. It's just like, I'm just figuring it all out, and I might bump into everybody or whatever. I'm figuring it out. But as you go, it's like, now I'm responsible for like the next person who comes in, or the class, the group.
Right. The longer you're there, the more responsibility you have for other people's growth and learning in addition to your own. So you have to continue to humble yourself.
I love that.
In relationship to, like, so the word that is coming to mind is senpai. So my senpai are students who are more advanced than me, and my teacher, because the teacher is also a student who is just particularly advanced. And so I am senpai to students who have come into the practice after me. And so I'm responsible to continue to humble myself and receive feedback from my senpai. And I am senpai to other students who I'm responsible for ensuring that they know what they need to know. So for instance, we recently had a new student start at the dojo. And when you're new in the dojo, you don't know where things are. You don't know what your responsibilities are. You don't know anything. It's very disorienting. And I remember after one of his first classes, class ends and we all bow out, and then everyone jumps up and immediately starts cleaning, because we always clean the mat and sweep the dojo and do a bunch of different things before we leave the space, before we drink water, before we change clothes, before we leave.
Y'all do it very energetically.
And it's very vigorous. I always say cleaning the mat is like the hardest thing that we do in the dojo. It's like so intense. But anyway, so he's standing there. He doesn't know what to do. And wow, would it not be useful for me to be annoyed with him? Right? It wouldn't be useful for me to be annoyed with him or to expect that he already should know what to do before walking in the door, or to leave him kind of to like float around. So I walk up to him and I was like, go talk to this person. They're going to give you XYZ item. I want you to go sweep the floor at the front of the dojo. That'll be your thing that you do today. And then, you'll just follow other people around, and you'll always ask for help, and you'll figure out what to do. And it's our responsibility also to tell you what to do. Right.
Yeah.
Because we are your senpai. And then, a year or two from now, if he keeps up his training, it'll be his responsibility to like tell people what to do. And what's funny for me is like, I've been training for almost 4 years. I will find myself in the process of telling someone else what to do, and then my teacher will walk up to me and correct me about what I just said. Right?
Perfect.
Because I always have to be responsible, and I always have to be willing to be corrected, because that's the nature of being in a practice community, right? And it's very humbling, and it's like humbling in a way that for me increasingly feels like an important skill to have at this time, right? Because the thing that we can know for sure, and this is like my little soapbox I've been on, the thing that we can know for sure is that the vast majority of the things that we know how to do don't work.
Period. Say it again.
anyone who has spent any decades of time in like left organizations, we have specialized in a set of tools, skills, ways of being, ways of doing that don't work, but we're really good at them. There's some things that we do that
don't work as is.
Well, but there's some things that we do that do really work. And then there's a lot of stuff that we do that does not work. And we have not yet, as a left, accepted the truth that those things don't work. So we're persisting.
Accept the no from society.
Right.
Like, society is not going to change like that, girl.
Yeah. Society is not going to change because of another one of your strategic plans. Right. So like, just as an example, it's a silly example, but I mean, there are a lot more serious examples of things that we spend a lot of time doing that don't work, but we all do them. We've all gotten really good at them. And so I think part of the muscle that you have to build that is a fortification muscle for being in community is the muscle of knowing that it was a mistake and it's okay. Oh, I was incorrect and it's okay. I will try again. I'll do it differently. That didn't work and it's okay. I'll try again. I'll do it differently. I'll keep trying until I learn how to do the thing that actually is correct and actually works. You know, and if we can't build the muscle of like you've heard me say this, we've talked about this, like receiving correction, receiving feedback.
Yes.
You know, but I do think, you know, when I think about the listener's question about like, what do you do when people, you know, can't be in process? I think it's like, oh, sometimes people can't be in process because they can't be in practice. You know,
that's right.
Being in practice requires us to be able to take correction, receive feedback, give feedback, you know, and keep it moving, right? Like some people will stay in process because they can't be in practice also, you know, so it's like we have to ask ourselves, we have to slow down, pause, ask ourselves, what am I practicing?
That's right.
And then to me, that circles right back to the question that you asked, which is, what can I do that I will do?
Yeah. Sister, you know, it's so beautiful. I'm really glad you shared that because I think about this practice partnership. And when I come back to this listener question, I'm like, I think what we wish is that movement was a practice partnership space.
Yes.
And I think that what we wish is that online and offline are both equal somehow reflections and you know, conversational reflections of that practice space, that practice energy, and that we're all like in this, you know, practicing the next world, practicing the world we're dreaming into existence, practicing the world we envision with each other. And that movement is that, you know, I often say movement is sanctuary and movement is practice ground. And like, I think that's what we wish was the case.
Yes.
Right now, it's not the case on the largest level, right? There's a lot of divisiveness. But I do think there are these small pockets, and I see it all the time when I'm both in movement spaces and in other community spaces where I'm like, people are finding smaller and smaller pockets for this.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I want to offer this listener is like, find your practice partners, find your senpai, be someone's practice partner. And it's okay if it's smaller. You know, I keep thinking that right now, that's like, right now, we need to get good at new skills. Skills that are like, oh, I can't have a meaningless interaction and expect meaningful change to happen.
Ooh.
And I think that's so much of what's happening with
bars.
With these conflicts though, you know, like so much, I'm like, oh, that's not a meaningful interaction. Right. And so, but I'm letting it mean so much to me.
And it's derailing my whole last day.
It's derailing my day. So I'm like, that's what I'm tuning into now is like, how can is this a meaningful interaction? Is it only meaningful if I engage with it? And like, what would be the more meaningful way to pull this off? And then letting your heart be broken is a meaningful thing, you know?
Yes.
Like accepting that it's like, oh, I thought this person was next to me, but actually they were like behind me with something sharp. And I have to recognize it and just be like, oh no. Oh dear. You know, I hear the music changing. You know, I was like, because I just saw Sinners, everything. I was like, don't go outside, girl. Don't go outside. You know.
Oh, all of those shots where where the vampire's like slowly, quietly running towards the person, and you can see them running.
It's really, I can't
Such
even. Anyway,
delicious horror.
I just love Delicious. Delicioso. All right. So speaking of things, do we feel like we landed this answering the question?
I feel like we landed the fuck out of that question. Thank you, listener, for that beautiful question. Thank you, sister, for all your wisdom.
Yeah, thank you for yours as well. And thank you also, I just want to say, for being my practice partner. Like, I want to just shed light on that like one of the safest places where I have been in relationship and learned to struggle and learn to like challenge myself and grow with another is in this podcast project that we're in and in our sistership. And I have to shout out our other sister, April, too. I'm just like, I feel like we really do this with each other. I think our whole family, like we're really just like, let's get in this boat and like reckon with things, everyone in their very wildly different way. But like, I do feel like our family has been a practice ground and our relationship has been a practice ground. And I'm really grateful for it.
We are committed to each other. We're
Long
committed
haul,
to each
baby.
other, which is like
long haul.
In it until the very end, sister, until the very end.
Shake these bones, shake these bones. Oh,
thanks for listening to our show. Don't stalk us. We're on Instagram at the End of the World PC. Don't stalk us. And on Blue Sky as ourselves, but don't stalk us.
Oh my
Thank
God.
you.
You can make a sustaining donation to our show by visiting our page, but don't stalk us at patreon.com/End of the World Show. But don't stalk us. Okay. Sorry.
Another incredible thing that you can do to help our show sustain itself is to write us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're an iPhone person, this helps people looking for good new content to find us. Thank you.
How to Survive the End of the World is produced and edited by our beloved Zach Rosen, and the transcripts are in our show notes and on our website at endoftheworldshow.org.
Music for today's show comes from Autumn, the band, Tunde Ilaniran, Mother Cyborg, and the Big Sons.